Want to be when you grow old. This is Robert Manni, host of Guys TV. And this week my special guest is Richard Leiter. He's written a book about aging purposefully. I've also got Brandon Beachum. We're going to talk about abundance, all right here on Guys TV. You can catch me also on KCAA for Guys Radio and my worldwide podcast. Guys TV, Guys Radio. Thanks for your support. We've got a very special guest. Let me tell you a little bit about him. We're going to talk about abundance today. His name is Brandon Beachum. He's a podcaster, entrepreneur, author, philosopher, truth seeker. He's been a serial entrepreneur since childhood, and in 2010, he founded a company called ResortShare, which was named one of the fastest growing private companies in America. Since discussing and exploring what he calls the ultimate nature of reality, and we'll get into that, he launched the Positive Head podcast, very popular podcast to reach a broader audience with his message. Brandon's show is one of the top 5 spiritual pods on Apple. The show's aim is to help listeners maintain a consistently high vibration, and we love that. Brandon began leading a communal property called the Mystic Manor, where he hosted weekly retreats and began filming the consciousness elevating variety show Optimystic, filming a show called, again, Optimistic. Brandon has now released his first book, The Golden Key, Modern Alchemy to Unlock Abundance, where he shares 8 keys of abundance based on his 25 years of personal experience and exploration. Welcome, Brandon Beachum, to Guys Radio. How you doing?
Hello. Thank you for having me.
All right, let's get right into it. So you're a successful business person, entrepreneur, spiritual messenger, if you will, teacher. What inspired you to kind of weave your business endeavors with your spiritual podcast?
Great question. And, it's all the same stuff, I would say, at the end of the day. It's, some people try and really segregate, I think, this is spiritual, that isn't. And it's all, as I say in my new book, it's all spiritual business. And so, yeah, I mean, my passion is talking about the ultimate nature of reality and helping people to shift their perspectives to create more magic in their lives. I believe we teach best what we most need to learn. And so I've been on a learning path for about 25 years around this subject matter. And, I just like to, find creative ways to put the information out there and involve people as much as possible along the way, whether it's, my podcast originally, Positive Head, my first sort of stint at this, I started including and saying, let's have Fridays be the fans can take over the show. We did the P-Head Posse. And then on my late night style show, video TV style show, Optimistic, hey, let's do retreats and let's have the fans of the podcast come and stay a week at the Mystic Manor where we shoot the show, and then they can be a part of it. And then, with my new book, same thing. I give people the opportunity to participate and spread the message and kind of share in the abundance, and really just a fun way to include as many people as possible. It's really my goal.
Okay. When you say the ultimate nature of reality, what does that mean, Brandon?
The ultimate nature of reality to me is, understanding the nature of the situation in which we find ourselves as human beings. And what's going on here? And the way I see it and perceive it is, it's all one. We're all one with the source consciousness that creates and animates all things. So the consciousness that animates my form, I believe, is the consciousness that animates your form. The separation between us is an elaborate illusion. And I think some of these ideas, as you dive down this rabbit hole, excuse me. Gets really, really interesting because you see, you hear the saying, as above, so below. You can look and see the physical, world. And this is part of some of the stuff I share in my book, as well as like, look, you're actually made physically of the, materials from a star that lived out its whole life cycle from young starhood to middle age, teenage years, middle age, old age, died. Its guts were strewn across the galaxy, reformed at some point into you. So, you're literally, a star reformed. And so when you look and see it's all the same building blocks physically, And then you start exploring the idea of it being the same, from a spiritual perspective, call it God, higher self, consciousness, love, the universe, however you try and point to it. It is very fascinating when you start to realize that you are it and it is you, and it is you.
And then how do you relate that to creating abundance, Brandon?
Well, great question. So, you know, let's assume what I'm saying is correct, and you are, one with everything that you see. So you are therefore, as I say in my new book, abundance is your birthright, the quintessence of your being, the essence of the essence. It is you, and you are it. All of the abundance you see in the world, therefore, is an extension of you in some way. And so, yeah, once you start, instead of creating, so many of us have lived from this perspective of separation. It's out there, I'm here, it's away from me. I don't know how to attract it or get it or create it. When actually, it's everything you see. It's a very famous Bible verse: I am that I am, right? So Dr. Wayne Dyer, I heard him break this down one time. Break it down like, I am, you look at something, I am that. And then you can really just drop the that. I am that. I am. I just am. My consciousness is. Everything is an extension of the one. And once you start playing with this idea, it's one thing to say, okay, theoretically, this makes sense. I can see how someone would arrive here. Let me start applying some of these perspectives and seeing what kind of results they get in my life, because that's really, results speak loudest, right? And so that's where it gets really fascinating, because the results that you get once you start operating from this perspective are really fascinating, inspiring, and leads you to the abundance that is your birthright.
It seems like manifesting is very challenging for a lot of people.
Sure.
And kind of playing off what you just said, there's two parts of it. One is, we live in a world where a lot of people think, I do this and I get that, I do this, I get that, I do this and I get that, and it's much more than that. Yet on the other end of the spectrum, people are wanting certain things, and then they're doing their best to feel like they already have those things. How do you kind of how are people kind of messing up when it comes to working with manifesting and working with attracting abundance and learning how to receive and getting beyond that kind of simulation, as you mentioned in your book, of I do this, I get that, and how we're programmed?
Yeah, right. So a really important thing to factor in, a lot of people, law of attraction is very controversial for the, a lot of the reasons you stated. I believe the most important word in there, law of attraction, is action. And it's all a part of the soup of experience that you're cooking up. And there's a lot more to the story than, okay, did I envision it for, for 10 minutes or 10 days or whatever it is, because there's so many factors at play. It's complex. So you've got to factor in, what has been your vibrational offering last week, last month, 10 years ago. You start getting into beyond this lifetime. What is my dharmic path? What did I set out to do as a possibility? And so as a, I believe we have a sort of potentials that we get to choose from and experiences, but there's probably not a version of Brandon, for example, that plays center for the, LA Lakers, right? So there is some sway as to, okay, you can create your reality to a certain degree, and then there's your dharmic path that you set up, you came into 3D, to experience, and that's where sort of the wiggle room is. And so there's just so much to factor in when you're looking at what sort of manifestation, what sort of experience that you're going to actually is going to appear in your life movie. And so a lot of times people are just looking at, something really narrow, really small sample of what they did, and there's factors that they're not even aware of. Like I said, it's like, how does other lifetimes play into this? How does all these different things play into it? So what I have found to work really well is to set an expectation of what you want to manifest, and then with a healthy sense of detachment is really important. Because I always tell the story. I believe the most important thing that we can do is tell a story. Abracadabra means I create as I speak. and you are spelling, you are casting a spell. Your words are your wands when you say anything. So here's my intention. Here's where I want to go. Here's what I'm setting out to manifest. And if that doesn't happen, it's because it's this or something better. So it's constantly, it's not over if I haven't won. That's the story that I tell. So continue to that because when you're overly attached to anything, you push it away. What what you sort of resist persists, what you accept, you move through. And how do you get into a state where you just are there to receive? You're going to do as much as you can with the information you've got from where you're at with the tools at your disposal, and let the rest go into, as one of the keys in my book is trust the mystery. I'm going to trust. There's more going on to this narrative than what I'm aware of. And I know it's all happening for my growth ultimately, even if that equates to me manifesting something that I didn't intend to manifest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of like good storytelling where the reader gets the ending he or she wants, but not in the way they expect it. And too often we squeeze things, we squeeze the life out of the things but through attempts to control the things we really want to receive, and it gets in the way. Okay, my special guest, Brandon Beachum. His book is The Golden Key, Modern Alchemy to Unlock Infinite Abundance. We're talking about that now. Now, in the book, Brandon, you mentioned, you write about our possibility of living in a simulation. Do you believe this is the case? And if so, what are the repercussions for how we live our everyday lives and our beliefs and our behaviors?
Yeah. A guy named Nick Bostrom put forth a paper that got a lot of attention. I think 2001. He's an Oxford guy, and he called it simulation argument. And he basically said, look, there are three possibilities of an advanced civilization. Well, one is that they get to a point where they die out before they become post-human, as he called it. They made it past all the challenges that would threaten our survival. Two, they become post-human, but they opt to go a low technology route. Three, you become a civilization comes post-human and continues to advance technologically, in which case they would most certainly create simulations of themselves, which we're, getting closer and closer to being able to do now. Take like the video game The Sims, for example, and, computing power doubling every 18 months or whatever it is. I'm not sure if that's still the case. I know years ago they said that. So, as you advance, it's like, okay, so number three is a pretty interesting one to consider. He also ran did some algorithms to try and determine what would be the most likely. He came up with number three being the most likely outcome, in which case, what's interesting about this is you only need one advanced civilization to create many, simulations of itself, right? I mean, think of a species that's 100,000 years more advanced than us. Their Xbox number 300 is probably pretty powerful, and we could be inside of it right now. And there only takes one kid to put it on a shelf and create billions of us in one simulation, right? So that's why you have people like Neil deGrasse Tyson talking about this, or Elon Musk came out not so long ago and said, look, probably 1 in a billion chance that we're in a base level reality as opposed to a simulation. So it's becoming more and more wider accepted. Now, I think for some people that's really, it's sort of like, it makes you uncomfortable to think about. However, what is the point of a simulation? The point of a simulation is to learn a skill in an environment that doesn't do major harm to the base level, right? So for example, if you're going to become a fighter pilot, they'll put you in a simulation before they let you actually fly the plane, so that if you make some bad maneuvers, the real you doesn't die, just the simulation. So when you start to think of it from that perspective, it's like, okay, if we are indeed in a simulation, and we know everything, we look around, everything's made of light. Well, what happens in a video game? Everything's made of light. What is physics showing us? Well, when we're not looking at a particle, when consciousness isn't observing it, it's in a state of quantum superposition potentials. When consciousness observes it, then it snaps into one fixed location. This is very similar to if I play a video game and walk down the hallway, of the castle, it's rendering as I walk, right? As my consciousness moves into that zone, it renders. So there's a lot of parallels showing, you zoom in on us and we pixelate, where our particles actually, the particles that make up the atoms that make up me aren't solid at all. They're vibrations of energy that aren't solid whatsoever. So it is a light show. Very with close parallels. Someone has programmed this place. So, I would believe personally that we are in some level of simulation. However, I believe we're the ones behind it, and we created it for ourselves to experience and grow and learn here.
Hmm. Who have been your spiritual teachers, and what have they taught you? Did you study with a particular master?
No, I did not. I've done a lot of. I like to say I consider myself a thought leader DJ. I love to take from different. There's so many great thought leaders and teachers out there, and just when I hear something that sounds true, feels true, resonates, speaks to me, I love to. My book is chock full of references to other teachers, but I named one. Wayne Dyer is a great one. You've got, I love Neil Donald Walsh's book, Conversations with God, was really a big one early on for me. I really, Osho is one who's somewhat controversial. However, the teachings are incredible. I don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Got it. But, okay, we've had some of those. We've had Neil Donald Walsh on the show a couple of times.
Oh, great.
So what are your, for yourself then, what are your daily spiritual practices?
Good question. So I'd like to say I'm more disciplined than I am. Although everything is perfect. I meditate probably 4 days a week. I do Kundalini yoga, maybe on average now 3 days a week. And then I have days where I hop out of bed and go right to doing things, coffee as a spiritual practice each morning. So I'm not as disciplined as some. I think it's, I don't know if you ever heard it referred to as the golden handcuffs, where you get too attached to, I must meditate at least 2 hours a day. I must. I'm slow to get to. Anytime I get put in any box, I usually revolt. So that's for me personally.
All right, let's get into abundance a little bit, Brandon. What does abundance mean to you? And then we'll get into the actual the 8 aspects in the book.
Sure.
So what does abundance mean to you?
Abundance, a lot of times people associate abundance with monetary wealth, right?
Exactly.
That is one form of abundance. I believe the most valuable form of abundance is time. Health being maybe right up there. Financial wealth, obviously, that's monergy. It's a useful tool in the monetary based society we currently live in. But wisdom, health, friendships, positive relationships, meaningful relationship. These are all forms of abundance. And so for me, my book is The Golden Key is Modern Alchemy to Unlock Infinite Abundance, is all about getting people to tap into, all the various forms of abundance that, are there and accessible, waiting for us to really align with. I talk about in the book, Derek Rydall calls it the law of emergence. Less than the law of attraction is, he likes to call it law of emergence, because there's not really anything that you attract that's outside of yourself. It's rather creating the right conditions so that what's already inherent within you can bloom. If you take an acorn, you put it on a shelf, it's not going to ever become an oak tree. Put it in the right soil, right sunlight, right water, it's going to bloom into something far greater or more complex than the acorn. And that's the same with us. It's all within us, this abundance waiting to be tapped into for the right conditions for it to emerge.
Okay. You've been very successful in your spiritual journey, as well as your entrepreneurship and your businesses and your shows. How did you unlock these 8 keys to abundance?
A lot of trial and error. 25 years of trial, error, deep exploration. I mean, even, my podcast, Positive Head podcast I've been doing this month. Right about now is my 6-year anniversary, actually. We're within days of it as I think of it as we record. And so, that, 1,400 episodes of me exploring, waxing poetic, sharing my challenges, sharing my perceptions. reading a lot of others' content, but just always, make it's one of those things. When I started having my own awakening, it was just such a deep, like, sense of, oh yes, this is it. This is the path. This is where, this is the path to go. Of course, it's all one. Of course, it's all a reflection of me. And knowing that is one thing, right? Theoretically, great. Now, applying that to your daily life, whole other thing. Everyone's got a plan, as Mike Tyson says, until you get punched in the face, right? So, it's knowing it is one thing, applying it so you actually utilize these perspectives is a whole different game, and that's a lifelong learning affair.
Okay. The name of the book is The Golden Key, Modern Alchemy to Unlock Infinite Abundance. There's 8 keys in there, and then there's the golden key. And Brandon's got a special offer to get the book free. But let me ask you one last question. I'd like to get practical with some of these things we're talking about. So what are a couple of things that our listeners can begin doing today to raise their vibration?
Great question. So most importantly, putting the right things into your body is so important. Dr. Joe Dispenza talks a lot about just making little shifts. If you're not liking where you're at, instead of resisting where you're at, appreciating that you're right where you need to launch into the next greatest and greatest version of yourself. What you're a part of is pure perfection. You're perfectly imperfect. So, the way to get to where you want to go is through the gratitude of where you're at. And that's, what you resist persists, what you accept, you move through. And so I would say that is a big one. You are perfectly primed and positioned to get to this overly abundant, this infinitely abundant part of yourself that is just waiting for you to open the tap, right? And it's all about aligning energetically. And a big part is non-resistance to what is. And then as you start to do that dance, you start to make little shifts in your day. Try meditating for 5 minutes a day. Don't try and, go straight to the monk who's been doing it for 50 years, all day in a cave. Like little things, little shifts. Take a walk where you'd normally sit and watch TV. Instead of watching it for 3 hours, watch it for 2 hours and 45 minutes and go walk for those 15. These little things,
yep, I agree.
They make big shifts. If I'm going to shoot a missile from, California to New York, if I shift it by 1 degree, it ends up in Maine or somewhere, these little shifts can make a really, really big difference.
All right. My special guest has been Brandon Beachum. The Golden Key is his book. The Positive Head is his podcast, and he's got this talk show that he does called The Mystic Manor.
Optimistic.
Optimistic. And then he's got a communal property called Mystic Manor. Sorry about that, Brandon.
Oh, all good.
But I wanted to allow Brandon to make an offer to our listeners, but I have to say respectfully, this is not from Guys Radio. Brandon is an entrepreneur. He does things a little bit differently. He tries things. I have ultimate respect for him, and he has some ideas in terms of how he wants to market his book. And there's a giveaway, and then there's an ask, and I'm going to let Brandon take a moment to do that, and then we'll wrap.
I appreciate that very much, Robert. Yeah, with the Golden Key, I really wanted to practice what I preach and walk the talk. And it's, I certainly could have gone the traditional publishing route and all those things. I always like to do things a little bit different. And for me, when I think about what is the best way to help us to transition out of our, cultural adolescence into you make it post-human, right, and survive, is by spreading this wisdom, this information, these keys that I've 25 years of deep exploration, I've whittled down to 8 keys. You can listen to the book in 3 hours or read it in 100 pages. And so I wanted to gift it to people. So I've allowed, if you go to goldenkey.gift, you can download or stream either one, get it online, audio or ebook. And if you use the code GUY, that'll allow you to get it for free. And knowing that you heard it here. And then what we do at the end of it, if you feel really inspired, you can come and pay any price for the book as part of an abundance manifestation game. or not, completely fine. Most people don't, which is great. And if you decide to do that, then we have a whole game where we just share that abundance with all the other people reading and playing the game. So it's all about just, spreading the love, spreading the monergy that does flow in. But the vast majority of people, you get the book, and I hope it just benefits their life.
Interesting marketing technique. I'll bet it will work for you. And again, this is Brandon's gig on that. It's not Guys Radio. However, total respect, and I think you're doing a great job, and keep at it. And thanks for being on the show, and we'll see you again.
Thank you so much for having me, Robert. Thank you all for listening. Till next time, journey well, everyone.
Okay, Brandon Beachum on Guys Radio. Thank you, Brandon.